Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is make a list. And your list, just like mine in a second, is going to consist of two things. You want to think about, number one, who are people that I know that have some sort of influence in the area in which I'm trying to get something done, get my idea, whether it's, I'm going to use an example of, I'm going to try to get a book proposal in front of a publisher. So I'm going to try to think of people that I know who have some amount of influence in the publishing world. For example, is there a possibility of me getting my proposal in front of the people that I know so that they can introduce me to the people who are in publishing, or a book agent, or whatever that happens to be? Your situation might be different. You might be trying to get more speaking engagements or get more business for a specific thing, whatever it is, but you're consistently trying to think about people in your world who you have some access to, but mainly who have influence in the area in which you're trying to find traction for your idea or your proposal or whatever it happens to be. So the first thing you do is just list them out. Don't worry about most important, least important, any of that. Just get names down. That's the issue. And I'm going to list first names of people as I go, and then we'll talk about how we navigate them. So the first person I know is Todd. All right. And then another person, actually the person that helps me in this program, is Jim. And then another guy that I know that I've worked with in the past, his name is Josh. A woman that I've worked for a couple years ago, her name is Lynn. And then another author that I know recently, his name is Dave. A guy that I used to work for, or used to work with, I had his daughters when I was a math teacher, his name is George. A fellow colleague of mine who's really a smart guy, his name is Colin. My current boss is a guy named Louie, and then a friend of mine who's done a lot of interesting stuff and I enjoy working with him, his name is Tim. All I've got here is a list. You can count it up if you want, between 8 and 10 names. I think there's 9 here as you go along, or 8 here as you go along. But get a list down. All right, maybe you don't have as much time right now to do that, but think about, who do I know that has influence in the area in which I'm trying to get something done. And then, as we go through this list, you're going to come up with an I score for them. All right, or an influence score is probably the best way to put that. All right, and I'm going to rate my list in terms of influence from 1 through 4. Okay, I'm going to give a 1 to people who have very little influence, in my case in publishing, or helping me with my idea, getting it in front of people who matter. I'm going to give a 4 to somebody who absolutely could give me an email introduction or a phone introduction to somebody who could really help me with my idea. And then 2s and 3s will navigate as we go along. So, for example, in Todd's case, he's published several books himself. He's a very accomplished author in the Christian world. So in terms of influence, I would give him a 4. All right, he knows publishers, could definitely get me in the right room with the right person. All right, Jim, on the other hand, is not quite a 4. He's published books himself. He's helped me on writing plenty of things. He's got quite a bit of juice, but he's not quite in Todd's realm of the world. So I give him a 3. All right, in terms of his influence. Josh hasn't published anything. He's a little younger than I am, so actually I would give him a 1 in terms of influence, although he does know some people, so we'll see. Lynn, in my case, she's done a ton of academic writing, really good writer herself. She can help me in a number of ways. I'm going to give her a 3. Dave has published several books, two of which are doing really well right now, so I'm going to give him a 4. George is not a bad writer, but I don't think he's done anything in a public way. I'm going to give him a 2 in terms of influence in the publishing world. Colin, smart guy, young guy though, doesn't have a lot of juice yet in the influence, or in publishing, for example. I'm going to give him a 2. Louie, my current boss, understands the publishing world and can help me write some things and figure out some things, but otherwise he's pretty much a 2. Tim has written some things, hasn't published books himself, but is a well-known thinker in the kinds of spheres that I want. So I'm going to give him a 2, but it could be a 3, depending on what I'm actually trying to get in front of what kind of people. So go down to your list now and think about influence. How much influence does this person have in the given sphere that I'm trying to reach? Either people that they know or they actually have juice themselves, as far as that goes. And you'll have a score for each of those people, 1 through 4. You can do half points if you want, but that kind of gets things complicated. Keep them in broad brush, 1, 2, 3, or 4. All right. Second thing we're going to come up with, second number that we're going to come up with is an access number. So what we mean by access is how accessible is this person to you. All right. So for example, Todd is somebody I've been at conferences with him. I've talked with him on a number of occasions. I've done collaborative things with him. And Jim, he will return an email from me, but it might take him a couple of days. All right. So my access to Todd, if I'm going to write a number on it, is a 3. Okay. If I won't call him up and say, hey, can we meet for lunch? We're not at that level of a relationship. But he will comment on my work. He would get back to me in time. Jim, on the other hand, is somebody who, if I call him, he'll answer the phone if he's physically able to do that. Not a problem. Total access to him. Josh is somebody I've done past work for. I talk to him quite often on Google+. I'm going to make him a 3. He's not quite in Jim's category, but he's pretty accessible to me. All right. Lynn is somebody who I haven't worked for a while. We do communicate by email occasionally, not nearly to the level of Josh or Jim, so I'm going to make her a 2. All right. Dave is somebody who I've done some work with. I know him tangentially through some other people. We've had a meeting or 2 just ourselves, so I'm going to call him a 3. All right. Maybe a 2, but I'm going to err on the side of 3. All right. George, good friend, good guy. If I called him, he would probably not answer the phone because he wouldn't recognize my number. But if I email him, I'll hear back. Colin is somebody who I've worked with. He'll answer a text or an email immediately for me, so I'm going to make him a 4. Louis, I have a tremendous amount of access to him. We work together a lot, almost every day. Tim is a guy who I don't live close to anymore, but if I called him or texted him, he would definitely make time if I was in town. So I'm going to give him a 3. All right. So now you've got a list of people, and you should have 2 numbers for each person, either a 1, 2, 3, or 4 for each of those numbers. All right. And now we're going to take your list and mine, and we're going to make a map of our list. So let me scoot this up so that we have enough room. All right, and here's how we make our map. We're going to go 5 vertical lines. They don't have to be perfect, just get them on your paper. 5 vertical lines. All right, and then 5 horizontal lines, as best you can, connect them. Doesn't have to be perfect, just see how mine is. All right, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vertical lines. All right, so draw yourself a grid. It should be 4 by 4. All right, along the side, number it 1, 2, 3, 4. This axis, the vertical axis, is going to be our influence score. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, across the bottom, also number it 1, 2, 3, and 4, left to right. This is going to be our access score, our access axis, if you want to say it that way. All right, and here's how it works. I'm going to take a person like Todd, for example. His score is a 4-3. So he's a 4 on influence, so I'm going to go all the way up to here to 4, and then he's a 3 on access. I'm going to write over here, and I'm going to have a guy named Todd in that quadrant right there, in that cell, if we want to use Excel language. Okay, Jim is a 3 on influence, so I'm going to start here and go up 3, He's a 4 on access, so I go all the way over, and I'm going to write Jim in this category. All right. Josh is a 1 on influence, so he's down here. Okay, but I have pretty good access to him. He's going to be in the 1, 3 category. Lynn has a fair amount of access, 3, okay, or fair amount of influence, excuse me. She's at a 3, but I only have a 2 in terms of access to her. So, excuse me, Lynn. All right. Dave has 4 for access, 4 for influence, excuse me, and a 3 for access, so he's in the same cell right here as Todd. All right, my friend George is a 2, 2, so I'm going to go up 2, over 2, and put his name in here. My friend Colin is a 2 for influence, so I'm going to go up 2, but then a 4 in terms of access, so I'm going to put him over here. All right, same thing for my friend Louie, 2 in terms of influence, but I do have access to him. He would go in the same place as Colin. And then my friend Tim is a 2 for influence, 3 when it comes to access. He would go here. All right, and this, whether you understand it yet or not, this is your map of influence. And we will use this map for the rest of the program. And will your map change, and will it get cleaner, and will you know more about it as you go? Absolutely. But this is the map that we use as we go through the rest of the program.